To In the Green Room, I'm Kinga.
And this is Martin. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And we have guests, our regular guest, Richard Betts, in today. And Richard, please introduce your friend.
Ryan Ansell, wine expert extraordinaire. Ansell. Wine expert extraordinaire, wine director at Anhelo Fine Dining Restaurant in downtown Phoenix.
Okay.
Cheers.
And,
Cheers. Cheers. We've already started before the camera started rolling. And this is delicious. This is, we were talking a little earlier, this is something very different than what I'm used to drinking. What are we drinking?
So this is an orange wine. No, it's
good, Ryan.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Tip your waiter. So just came back from Burgundy, and we were assessing the 2021-22 vintage in Burgundy.
And what were you doing in Burgundy?
Drinking lots and lots of wine, trying to identify.
Alone, or who were you with?
Don't tell my wife. I was with a significant other. There was a group of us focused on identifying really the best wines at all price points. This bottle is one, which is why I brought it, but they do a tremendous job in northern Burgundy.
It's exceptional. What is this price point of this, and how would you describe this wine and tell us the name of it too?
Wow, right on the hot seat. Okay.
Yes.
So it is a Pinot. So in Burgundy, there's three grapes, but mainly two grapes. It's either the red grape Pinot or the white grape Chardonnay for the most part. There's North and South Burgundy, Côte Nuit, which is mainly for the reds. And then there's Côte de Beaune, which is mainly for the whites. So this is Côte Nuit up north, and this is even more on the northern
Côte
side.
Nuit.
Or some people call it these nuts, but
N-U-I-T.
N-U-I-T-S. And Beaune is, in general, more for the whites. So this is a red. You can get
Pinot.
Exactly, a Pinot.
100%.
Can we see the bottle?
Yes.
And what you'd find, or names you might recognize, would be DRC, which is a really famous version of a Côte Nuit red Pinot.
Oh, I know.
And this is more of a lesser known, super high quality QPR in the wine business, quality price ratio. And that's what this delivers. And they really focus on two main areas within Côte Nuit. And this one is from you don't say Saint Denis, which is what it looks like. You drop the last letter most of the time. So it would be Denis is how you would say it.
Saint Denis.
And then this is a Premier Cru. So there's four levels in Burgundy. You have a Bourgogne, which is really over different areas within Burgundy itself. And then you have the next level up of that, which is a village or village wine, which would be a specific area within Côte Nuit or Côte de Beaune. And then you have a Premier Cru, which is a specific vineyard that's been designated as having a really finite climate is what that kind of looks like, or terroir. And then from there you'd have a Grand Cru. And these are all pre-designated years and years ago by monks. Well, this is the third level up, and it's a Premier Cru.
So what would the price point be? And how would you, like, we're drinking this, give us the words like chocolate, berry.
Yes, the tasting notes.
Vanilla.
Well, I think it's time to put you on the hot seat. So DRC, from an area similar to this and some others, those wines range from about $3,000 to about $15,000 on release. This is a newly released wine. It's a 2020 vintage. How much does this cost? What's your thought?
$1,000. Come on.
I'll say 500.
Probably 100.
100. So this is a $100 wine.
Okay.
That anybody else making the wine from this region would probably be about $500. You would have been spot on. The quality is comparable to about $350 to a $400 wine from the same area.
It's exceptional.
They do a tremendous job. They are barely in the United States. They're certainly not in Arizona, very, very little. And so these are the types of wines that are at the restaurant in downtown Phoenix, as well as what we're doing for athletes around the world, which is identifying the best expressions from any grape varietal, from anywhere in the world, at the right vintages at the right time. And this is an example of one.
Exceptional. I love it. So how would you describe it?
So there's a couple different versions of Pinot in Côte Nuit. You're going to get either the redder fruit and orange peel and very acidic versions that with age become more delicate and flavors expand, or you're going to get some more of the darker fruit, which is what this is, a little bit more fruit forward, a little bit sweeter in profile. You can drink them earlier on release. Some of that has to do with winemaking, some of that has to do with the terroir, and some of it has to do with when you're picking the grapes. So a little bit confusing. This is more of a darker profile, so you're going to get more of the blackberry, cassis flavors on here. You're going to get some of the red fruits, the currants, red and black, dark red cherries. You're going to get some of the other components, which would be mineral, sweet earth. You get all of that into one glass, which is pretty compelling to drink with or without food.
Do you find this dry?
All the wines that we're going to recommend besides dessert wines are all going to be dry. So what people don't understand is you have anywhere between 1.5 grams of sugar in the entire bottle, 3 grams, things like that. So very low sugar content, very low calories, and it is something you can drink in general that doesn't have residual sugar, which is.
So how would you define dry?
So these wines are all dry until you get into something where some of the manufactured wines, I'll leave names out so I don't get people angry, they have residual sugar in them to make them more appealable, to cut through some of the acidity.
Yes. Well, the American market, like barefoot wine, that's just typically known as a sweeter wine. They fortify, it's almost more fortified.
Is that sold at Circle K?
Yeah.
Gosh, I would never drink a wine like that. Sorry.
No, that's okay. I mean, it's different strokes for different folks. I mean, some people like that, but that seems to be that sweeter, more sugary thing seems like to be a
to me, that's not wine.
Here's the thing.
I don't think it's wine. So how do you define?
Here's the point. A wine can taste totally dry to your palate and still have 1.5 grams of sugar for the bottle.
Okay, but I thought the dry meant less sugar.
It does.
Okay,
it does.
But last night we were eating, I'm not telling you where because I don't want to call this guy out. I said, oh, so it's dry, so it has less sugar. He goes, that's not what it means. And he corrected me, so I'm like, okay, maybe I don't know what dry means. So what does dry mean to you?
So you're going to look at residual sugar. So if you look at Sauternes, which is a famous area in Bordeaux, south of Bordeaux, there's a Grand Cru by the name of Yquem, and Yquem is actually a higher level than first growths that some people may have been more aware of, a Mouton or Lafite, etc. Those are first growths. Grand Cru is actually above that. And so those wines do have residual sugar. This year when we're at the Chambaron, Syrah, which is Sauternes, they have 190 grams of sugar in their 22 release.
So this is late harvest wine with residual sugar. That means as fermentation is done, there's still a bunch of sugar left.
Right. Yeah, all the yeast is at this point is gone. The sugar still remains, so there's no more alcohol fermentation. It's still at a reasonable 12 to, in general, 14% alcohol level, but the sugar is left, and it has to do.
So is
with
it almost
the
like a port then?
No. Well, port is fortified, so a port does have sugar in it, but that has brandy or an alcohol in it as well. These are just the same level, 13% as, give or take, as the wine, but there's a lot of sugar. And the reason that these Grand Crus and these Premier Crus and Sauternes are so highly valued is because there's an acid component that makes it you're not drinking dessert. Exactly. There's an acidity that refreshes the palate. You can have it with food. It's really great with foie gras. That's that. This wine has literally it has a sweetness on the attack when you first taste it, but it's totally dry, has all the flavor profiles, and as it opens up, you're getting a little bit more of the leather, a little chocolate, so you're getting this really expansive profile. We're drinking it way too early, but I wanted you to see what a recent release of a phenomenal wine at an insane price point can get you.
So this is a 2020, which means it's been in the barrel for 3 years, and then they just bottled it probably late last year.
Usually it's going to be about 2 years between time they pick it, throw it in a tank, barrel, depending on what they do, whether it's new oak or not, it depends. And this is a Premier Cru, so there's probably a percentage, 20 to 50% new oak in it, and the rest is older barrels. And so it's going to be in a tank. They're going to ferment it either in the barrel or the tank. And then after that, either it's done from barrel fermenting, they'll put it back in a tank, blend all the different barrels from this specific site together. Those that don't make the cut, they can declassify it, make it a village or a village wine, or they can sell it, or they can do whatever they want. And then they take the best barrels from the site, and that's their best expression from the specific site in this area. So about 18 months, give or take, total from start to finish. And then many will hold it in the bottle to let it settle down, for it to actually be a version of this for about 6 months or so, and then they start shipping it worldwide. It takes about 3 months to get from France to the United States. Did
any of the wineries you visit, Ryan, use concrete eggs for after barrel aging, resting in concrete egg.
Yeah, so what they're trying to do is
Yeah.
definitely in vintages where it's a warmer vintage like 2020 and some
Mhm.
19s. Boyer comes to mind, which is a Marceau property. And they,
Boy, Martineau.
Oui.
yeah,
Ooh.
exactly.
Mhm.
They do a phenomenal job with their whites, and what they're experimenting with is how do we retain the freshness and add more of that acidity without adding acid or sugars or all these different things to play with the wine. And so you see that the concrete vessels are coming back. A lot of that's been done in Rhone and in other areas, but it's really creating this great freshness that you don't get, and it stops imparting the wood profile of the barrels into the wine. So usually it's in barrel for about a year, 8 months to 16 months. They take it out, they get the exact expression they want, and then they put it into a concrete vessel instead of a stainless steel tank, or instead of leaving it to get more tannins and become more austere in a barrel.
The last time I drank the Boyer Martineau, it's white Burgundy.
It is.
Yeah.
At the Sanctuary at Elements,
Yeah.
Laura Bruno suggested it. She's my favorite somm in Arizona.
Mhm.
Very young, like 25, 24. And she said it was exceptional. I think that is such a great wine. How does that compare to some of the other wines?
Yeah. Boyer or
The
Boyer,
region.
yeah, they're, so as I mentioned in Beaune, there's three main, there's more, but there's three main areas. There's 2 Montrachets, and then there's a Marceau. He's from Marceau. His family's been doing it for forever, for a very long
He's
time.
4th generation. Yeah.
He was actually at the restaurant right before we left Burgundy. He flew out, and we did an entire
I got to
horizontal.
meet him too. I have
Yeah.
pictures of him. I'll post them.
Yeah,
I
it
have
was a
pictures
great
of him.
horizontal
He's
dinner
great.
of
Yeah.
both his full flight of whites from Burgundy, and also the Pinot and the Chardonnay from California.
That's right. He has a passion project from
Yes,
California.
called
Can you talk about
Boyer
that?
Family Winery, which is a single vineyard, L'Ecole Vineyard, 100 cases each of a single vineyard Chardonnay and Pinot Noir, made in Santa Lucia Highlands, which is very well known for Chardonnay and Pinot Noir. And when he was in California as a young man, he decided, wow, it would be great someday to make a California Chardonnay and Pinot Noir in the Burgundian style. We've had his U.S. partner, Gabriel, on the show.
Gabriel Justice.
Gabriel, yeah. So, yeah, but those wines taste very different from wines made from the same vineyard because they're picked earlier. They're only 13% alcohol. He makes them exactly the same way he does in Marceau. That's the difference. So I call it, again, my favorite.
Hey, how about a case of it? Do you remember that?
Yeah, how about the perfect marriage of California and Burgundy. But seriously, you get a guy who's 4th generation from Burgundy, you know, working with the same grapes, but in a different area, different terroir, but still using this, you know, the winemaking style of Burgundy. The result can be, you know, quite lovely.
Yeah, it was a fantastic, and Anhelo Chef Ivan did this tremendous pairing all the way through with the Marceau, all the different wines.
Can we tell the world about your restaurant?
Yeah,
The restaurant?
Yeah, I it's not really my restaurant. I just do the wine program that
Oh, you're part of it then.
we. He's a phenomenal chef. He's really innovative.
What's his name?
His name is Chef Ivan. Is what he goes by, but he doesn't like when people call him chef, so we all do. Even though he doesn't like it. Hi, Chef.
No, he's very,
Chef Ivan.
very humble.
What's Ivan's last name?
It's Jacobo or Acobo or
How do we spell that?
Jacobo.
Okay.
Highly talented. He came over when he was 5 years old to the United States. His parents worked tirelessly to give their kids an education and give them an opportunity. It's truly the American dream, and they've all done extremely well. And he started a restaurant. He was doing pop-up dinners for people all over the valley. He had a food truck, which became highly successful. And then he opened up his first restaurant, and he's done tremendous things. I met him about 1.5 years ago before he opened the current restaurant. I needed a chef. A winery was flying in from Napa. My chef was on TV in Tuscany, and I had 9 days to find somebody.
Who's that?
His name is Gabriel.
I know him.
Yeah,
He's got a new TV show now too. Yeah.
He's great. And so I didn't know what to do. I'm not from here. I'm from New York, and so I asked somebody at Trusted Source, the head somm at Cafe Monarch, was Sam, And he said one of the best chefs you've ever met is opening up a restaurant in downtown Phoenix. It's not open yet, maybe he can help you. And in 9 days, Ivan put together an incredible pairing with this Napa winery. And I said, hey, you just did me a favor, let me help you with the wine program. And he refused. And I saw his wine menu, and it's like every other restaurant in the world, and at least in the United States. Vintages weren't great. It's overpriced by 400% markup. And I said, why don't you do something that mirrors how great your food is and the experience? And then we came back after going to French Laundry. We flew back in.
French Laundry, oh my gosh, that's an amazing restaurant. I've been there, I love it.
They do a great job. And so we came back, and his food was on par, and the wine list was like every other wine list. And eventually he said yes. I said, but here are the 4 conditions. 1, we're going to close the restaurant. We're going to have chateaus fly in from all over the world, and we're going to do private dinners. And number
Smart.
2 is we're only going to buy vintages that are great to excellent. And no matter if a distributor or an allocation says you can't have it if you don't buy it, we don't buy it. 3 is we're going to price the wine at half the price of all Michelin star restaurants. So it's
love that.
wine is only priced between 0 and 200% of retail.
Mm-hmm.
And then lastly is we're going to do some BMF wines by the glass. If you saw Pulp Fiction, you'll get the BMF reference.
Yeah.
Well, tell me.
It's a big, bold, flavored wine.
Yeah.
Let's just say that.
Yeah. It's the initials on the wallet with Samuel Jackson. So net is we do
I know what it
Lafite
is. I know
by
what
the
it is.
glass. We do
I got it.
Boyer by the glass. We do some wines Dujac we've done by the glass. Petrus we've done a tasting. And so we do all these different opportunities for people to drink incredible
I've
wine.
had the Boyers by the glass at
Yeah.
your dinner.
Yeah.
So what inspired you to do it so differently than everybody else? Because he's this amazing chef. He's been dealing with wine and food forever. He's amazing in wine or in food, and then he's got a wine menu that's the same as everybody else. Why? What inspired you to be different?
Yeah, I think it's a good question.
That's a great question.
In general, I've always been a fan of the TV show Cheers.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to walk
Me
into
too.
a restaurant.
Cheers,
Yeah.
cheers, cheers.
Cheers.
That's pretty fair.
And
Love
so
that show.
I want to walk in, I want somebody to appreciate me. I'm from New York, and that's an experience that I think you get from start to finish. The service, the food, and then whatever
Many people know you.
want. Yeah, or just not me as in Ryan, but a customer that comes down, I want to be appreciated. Spending a lot of money, I'm spending time. So we talked through it, and he agreed to take that chance, take the risk, because it's very expensive to build that type of wine cellar.
Right.
And he did it, and it's been incredible. I want a place where I can go with my friends, or that I can have my friends go down, and we can get any wine on the list is outside of 15 wines that you have to have because it's a restaurant. You can pull. They're going to be great vintages, great expressions, really great values. They're also, every wine we get is ex chateau, or at least if it's through the distributor, it's coming through cold chain all the way through. So you always get a great bottle of wine. We don't buy any gray wines at all. So that type of experience is what's being built. It's been open for about a year and a quarter.
That's
and
it.
That's
Really?
it. And we've already, there's 3 levels for Wine Spectator. It got Best of Excellence in its first year, which is one of the only very few to ever do that. And it's because
I've only eaten there twice, and both times were the best experiences I've ever had.
Oh, well,
Ever.
I have nothing to do with it. He's the talent, and I just walk around pretending I know what I'm doing.
Oh no, you make the wine experience exceptionally fine.
So going back to what you said, what is a
Yes.
gray wine?
I was going to ask that. Thank you, Martin.
I read your mind.
So if
Yeah.
you're colorblind, so gray wines, when you, people have cellars that they sell. So if somebody passes away, or they're no longer in the wine,
right.
or a handful of reasons, people will sell wine on an open market, or to a broker, or to a restaurant, or whatever. That is gray. You don't know where they got the wine from, so the Provence, you don't know.
Is it smart to do that? To buy it in that way?
It can be, because maybe you want certain wines and you're unable to get them anymore.
Mhm.
The beauty of wine is every vintage is different. The winemaker style is different. The terroir, the climate, everything changes. So no wine is exactly the same every year.
Please, I don't want to be bearer of bad news, but I bought some vintage wines that are, really expensive. And then when I've cracked them open, they didn't taste that good.
And that,
Why is that?
it could be a lot of reasons. It could just be maybe a bad vintage. It could be the storage is what I'm talking about with gray wines. Is you don't know where they got the wine from. You don't know they put them in their car in Arizona and then drive to their house, put them in a
Cooked
wine
it.
fridge, kept it on their counter. Light destroys wine. So even if it was kept in a wine fridge, but if it faces the window and there's no UV protection, it destroys wine.
Yes.
So there's lots of reasons that you don't know, or
so
you could have been
light,
lucky.
heat.
Yeah, so buying gray wine's a bit of a crapshoot.
Right.
In other words.
Okay.
Well, now I've
Okay.
delivered wines
Yeah.
where people have actually taken the
Yeah.
temperature of the case.
Yeah.
That's right.
So I mean, it's an important.
And you pay more. So the Provence is
Mm-hmm.
important. Where'd you get it from? So if it's from the chateau, who picked it up from France? Are they checking the temperature from the chateau to the
Mhm.
warehouse? Then it gets on a climate controlled boat, and there's a truck between there, and they're checking the temp everywhere. It gets on the boat, and then when it comes to the United States, it's going to land in San Francisco or New Jersey. Are they taking the temp there? And then when they finally get it on a climate controlled truck, we get the temperature taken when it arrives. So every single piece of that puzzle is taken care of. The challenge is the wine costs more, or we don't get it.
So if you're having wine delivered to your house and you're not home,
It doesn't get delivered to my house. It gets delivered to an offsite
Okay.
cellar that both
Right.
can handle crates and or pallets, and it's all checked in and cold chained from start to finish. It's the only way we buy wine. And if my friend's going to show up at dinner and they're going to spend money on a wine, whether it's $50 or $5,000, that wine better be perfect. Now, some wine you can't help. There are things that go wrong, but you try to eliminate all of those
Such
things
as?
from happening. Sometimes wineries will have a bad cork, so the cork will be bad. There's a lot of steps and there's diam and things that improve that or reduce the chances of those things, which is be taint from the cork, or you can have different things that happen when you taste the wine. It tastes like cardboard. It can kind of smell funky, which is called bread. So you can alleviate as much of that as possible, but it's never 1,000%.
well, because I've been with friends that are like, oh no, we don't need to taste it, and it's like that's a stupid thing because for example, our friend Sam Pillsbury, he's had cases where he's like, this whole case is not good, and you do need to taste the wine to make sure. I mean, you don't want to spend $100.
So are you a hardcore cork person, or do you
Yes.
like the screw caps? Because the screw caps kind of change the game when we come to funky wines
I
and
like the
things. It
cork.
definitely helps.
Yeah, so Penfolds did that a long time ago.
Mhm.
They were kind of leading the charge on that. And then Cade, so Plump Jack, all of them, they were doing like one cork and one cap. The romantic part of pulling a cork I love, but if at the end of the day, a screw cap's going to give me a better guaranteed wine, great. The challenge though is many wines can be reductive, which means that the oxygen will actually help them through their life cycle. If you put a cap on it, there's no air getting in. In a cork, there's slowly air coming in and breathing with that wine. So I think time will tell if it all goes through, but I think there's significant advantages of the wines that are ready to be drank now.
I think it's sexy with
Having
the
a
cork.
screw.
I think it's so unsexy with the twist on.
That's because you don't ever open a cork yourself.
Well, that's
you
true.
always have people
If
do it for you.
That's true. If I'm drinking wine, I'm drinking with somebody. You know that song, George Thorogood?
Don't
I drink
drink
alone.
alone. No, you
I
don't
drink
drink
alone.
alone, no.
I don't drink alone.
No.
Yeah.
So that's true. Somebody's always opening up my cork. That's true.
That's why you think it's
Everyone's
sexy.
always pondering.
Very nice.
Of course, Martin's the love coach, and he knows way too much. So quit
True.
divulging more.
So true.
Love
True.
coach.
Love coach.
Coach.
That's right.
And-
The plane.
And Martin is also with the band, his own band.
Junk the band. That's right.
He's the lead singer. He writes the songs.
I know you're just telling me about it.
Yeah, Junk the band.
I'm
So
excited.
when your restaurant wants to have the coolest band in the world, hello, let's
do it.
go.
That's right.
Let's
That's
do
right.
let's do a Junk the Band wine dinner.
So I don't make any
I'll bring
decisions,
all
but
my
I'm going to
friends.
bring it up.
I would
Here we
love
go.
Why
to.
not?
Cheers,
That'd be
cheers,
fun.
let's do it,
Would
let's do it.
cheers.
Woo.
We
Well,
would
we can do
love
it at my house.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
Yes,
The music
yes,
mansion.
yes.
The musical,
yes.
the musical mansion.
Well, we had a gig out at First Friday downtown.
How was
on
that?
Friday. It was so much
Ooh.
fun. Sorry we missed your birthday, Owen.
Can we have another
Um,
video?
But
Owen?
we had so much fun. It was just. I mean, I loved the First Friday energy
Start from the
downtown.
beginning. So
That's
you
fantastic.
played with your band.
So the gentleman who started, David, who started the Phoenix Afrobeat Orchestra,
Oh,
he has
Love that.
amazing group.
Yes.
They have like 15 members. They're
Awesome.
from the music departments of U of A,
Yep.
ASU,
Incredible.
Yep.
GCC, just incredible musicians.
Incredible.
And he has a
Stellar.
house down in the middle of First Friday.
Yeah.
And so every First Friday he just invites a handful of musicians to come and play at his house. And
Cool.
he
Wow.
he opened up for us and did a little song and dance on his on his guitar,
I love
and
it.
which was a lot of fun. And then we hooked up and played from 9 to 10 and had just tons of people stop by. The neighbors all came out.
And your wife Sherry was there.
Yeah,
and
she's
been
she's
a
a
month
singer.
gone, and she was in India for a month.
Yeah,
So that's
and,
exciting. She shows
so-
up and wow, the
And
band's
boom,
going.
we had a gig, so that was
Yeah.
a lot of fun.
I love Sherry.
Yeah, we have it was 6 folks, but we have 9 total that kind of cycle through, and we're a jam band, so we like to take short songs and make them really long.
Yeah.
I love it. Do you have your guitar with you?
I do.
Can we sing about some wine? Let's get it out.
Oh, you want to
Sing
sing
about
some
wine?
more?
Yeah,
All
let's
right.
sing about wine. Here we go. And what kind of guitar is this?
This is a beautiful Taylor guitar.
Okay, here we go. The sound is incredible.
You got a couple Taylors.
I do.
I have a Taylor.
I do. I'm music major.
I listen to music.
Well, that's-
What kind of music do you like?
I like them all.
All right.
Equal
We're
opportunity.
gonna sing about
I'm with
the
you.
wine director at Anhelo.
Well, we're sitting around this microphone drinking a little bit of wine.
And it's so fine.
Kinga always steals my rhyming words, but she's divine.
I don't mind.
Oh, that was better.
Everybody sing, everybody sing.
That's right. Just jump in. This is all improv.
I'm not out of line.
Well, it's your show, so it's really hard for you to be out of line.
And it's so fine. Because we're saving the planet
That's right, because we're saving the planet one
one at a time.
show at a
Wine at a time. I like wine, one wine at a time.
We're a bunch of winos
And nerds. Ryan.
and nerds saving the earth.
Ryan's such a nerd. And hello.
Wine is a wine
not saying.
nerd. That is
I know my limits.
that is a highly that's a good
Factually
thing.
accurate.
Yeah, that's
So there's wine
Not bad
nerds
thing.
and there's wine dorks and there must be wine geeks.
And we want to go. And the wine dorks want to go pork at and hello.
It didn't rhyme, but I liked it.
How do you say and hello? Am I saying it right?
Yeah, all of them work.
Oh.
Anhelo and hello.
And hello.
Just show up.
And hello.
So, we're trying to pronounce the name of a restaurant that's pretty darn good.
It's the finest
It's probably the finest that you're gonna get
in the United States.
in that hood.
definitely not her.
Well, we're winos
And we're nerds.
saving the planet.
In the green room.
Well, we're winos
In the green room.
saving the planet.
There you go.
Very nice.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right, Dominic, how much time do we have left?
We still have
20 minutes.
Oh,
25
25
Okay,
minutes.
good. We have a lot of time.
We're
Okay,
doing
good.
great.
So how can I help? What can I help? Audience, you guys?
Well, the way you can help is telling the world about how your restaurant, because I want to come and
Well, I want to
Eat
hear
them.
more about this.
I wanna eat
The cellars. So it's remind me the name of it. It starts with a C. Something cellars.
Oh, cultivate?
Cultivate cellars.
oh, it's the
And so
athletes.
you had
Yeah.
told us earlier that
Yeah.
you started really
Yes.
getting into wine about 2005,
Right.
and now you've been
Mhm.
inspired to help athletes and other celebrities to understand what their palate is, because they might be, an amazing football player or baseball player or actor or actress, but they might not have had much experience
They
in
have
the
no clue
wine
about the
world.
wine.
Right.
And so now you're. How did that all start?
Yeah, no, it's
And whose idea? It's brilliant.
It's a good question. So,
Yeah.
I've been lucky enough to be able to drink great wine and kind of go through the process and make a lot of mistakes and learn from those mistakes.
And how did that get started? Because we didn't really talk about that.
Mistakes? Well,
No,
most
how
of the
you got
decisions I made
started.
in life.
In the finest wine.
So in early 2000, I was looking around and seeing people buying and spending significant amount of money on wines,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't drink wine at the time. I was a tequila and Scotch drinker.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
That was my jam, and
Mhm.
even to the point of going to Tequila Mexico. I'm just a 2 feet in type guy. But anyways, people would spend a lot of money on wine. I didn't understand. I didn't drink it, and at the same time, people were buying really great homes on ski mountains or golf courses or on the ocean. And I thought, what a great idea it would be to, instead of fractionalize this all over the world and focus on ski, ocean, etc., why not do this with wine? Why not buy vineyards from all over the world? You would get a home there, and you would have a co-op, so to speak, where you'd own parts of the vineyard in Brunello or in Piedmont, Barolo vineyard, or in Bordeaux, wherever it may be, Napa, Sonoma.
But what do you mean by part of it?
Yeah.
How does that work? I don't understand that.
So you would buy real estate, and you would also own some of the vineyard. And so when the grapes came due, there'd be a winemaker there that would pull the grapes, and either you could keep the bottles yourself, or you could literally donate those grapes to a major bottling, and they can sell the wine.
Right.
And so we went and we explored all over the world. But since I didn't drink wine, I figured the only way to figure this out would be to start trying wine. And instead
In
of
2000.
So you had that wine idea before you started drinking wine.
yes,
Okay.
it was all about money.
Interesting.
All about
Very
money.
interesting.
Yeah.
And
So it was all about money.
It was all about figuring out how to way to, I don't own a mountain or a country club, but I can get access to wine.
Right.
So we brown bag
So you're
wine.
ambitious about just wanting to make money and realizing I can do this with wine.
I wanted to bring wine and real estate as a lifestyle together, which at that point in time I didn't feel existed. I thought even wine, it was just too confusing. I don't think a lot of people understood wine, nor do they now, potentially.
I agree.
And so
I
it was
think
a great way to do that.
It's not a simple thing to get into.
It's
I mean,
not.
you can go to the grocery store and buy your favorite wine and find something you like, but I mean, like you say, there's so much to it. I've taken a couple classes, more than a couple, but every time I go, I learn something completely that blows my mind.
Every show that we do about wine with Richard or Sam or whoever,
Absolutely,
we
learn something new.
so much.
Yeah, and it's the
I'm learning
challenge
so much
is
today.
wherever the distributor is pushing the wine in a retail setting or a restaurant or what have you, is what you're going to see on the shelf. And they're going to have every vintage, and you shouldn't buy every vintage. They're going to have every varietal, and maybe some of those varietals should not be purchased, or maybe the winemaker is putting residual sugar to cover up flaws in some wines that are very popular in Napa and
So that
Sonoma.
happens?
It happens all the time.
All kinds of things happen in the world of wine.
Even the wines that you've mentioned when we were at lunch.
Nefarious practices.
And you can refine wines, which is fine. You can do egg whites. You can do.
Wow.
You can put some.
So my favorite
seafood
one
in
is
there.
that. Does that happen with?
I'm not.
Don't say
I'm
it.
not
Don't
going
say it
there.
there.
That's a very
Yeah,
popular
yeah.
wine, but many of the wines they try to make a uniform version every vintage.
We've talked about this before.
Yeah, and it takes away from the uniqueness. Of
Well, I'm
the
not asking you about
vintages.
Arizona
the
wines because I
wineries
know
that
you're.
No, this
you-
wasn't
hold on.
Arizona.
We've
I know
talked
you're not an
about
expert
this.
on Arizona wines, but
Maybe
Richard
commercial
is.
wines, as we've talked about before, that are well known.
Yes.
They make them so that they taste exactly the same
very
every
manipulated.
vintage.
Yeah,
Yes,
we've
this is
talked
what
But I know
people
you're
want.
not. I know
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
not an Arizona wine expert, but
I'm
you
not.
are, and I love Arizona wines, and I feel like they do a great job.
Well,
And
Arizona wines, for the most part.
hold on, I need you to
Okay.
interrupt me.
Okay.
Because I've been at a couple of restaurants where you get a bartender that will say, the Arizona wines are terrible,
I know, well,
and they
they're-
try to talk me out of
I
drinking
know,
them.
That's
Well, I know better.
that's just willful
Because
ignorance.
I love Arizona wines. I love wines from Europe. I love wines from France. I love wines from Italy. I love wines from California. I love wines from New Zealand and Australia and all
Yeah,
over.
me too. What
So
I'm
I'm
talking-
not, I just love it all. But when somebody has no experience with drinking a certain region of wine, like Arizona wines, and they say it's terrible wine, what do you think about that?
I think it's willful ignorance, and
Thank
they're
you.
they're welcome to that. But but what the point I was making about Arizona wine in lieu of what we were talking about,
Mm-hmm.
most
Okay, any more
Arizona,
wine?
I think any Arizona winery I know about does not engage in a lot of these shenanigans with a lot of additives and
I know,
covering
that's why I
up,
brought it up.
you know.
They're
Yeah.
really virgin
Well,
wines.
they're smaller, right? It's usually the larger wineries that have the money to have a lab to
Well, when you
figure out all
have
that
a
stuff.
million bottle production,
Mhm.
you know, you're going to use technology
Mhm.
and additives to make those wines.
Right.
Okay,
you know,
I ate
taste
last
good.
night at Beckett's table with Owen. Hi, Owen.
Mm-hmm.
He's right there, our intern, my nephew. And I had Arizona wines last night.
Mhm.
Sunday nights they have half off Arizona wines, and I have to tell you, they're exceptional, like incredible wines.
Mhm.
And people that haven't tried them just have no idea. And then when you get somebody saying, "Oh, they're terrible, don't try them," I have a problem with that.
Well, you got to remember that
Mm-hmm.
just like I said in the beginning, and this is my problem with many somms, is they're only aware of and experience with the wines that the wine buyer or wine director or the restaurant or store buys.
Mhm.
So they might have only had, whether it's in Bordeaux or Arizona or wherever, a finite sampling, and they might have had crappy Arizona wines. But there are many opportunities to be able to try Arizona wines, or from anywhere in the world. And until you go
Yes.
deep enough to understand what's good and bad, example, I would not buy a Cabernet from Arizona, but a Rhone varietal would be phenomenal in
Yeah.
Arizona. It's the climate,
Yes.
and they're trying not to try to force, different varietals, and they're getting there.
Have you
The-
tried Sam Pillsbury's wines? Because I love his
I've
wines.
tried a lot of Arizona wines.
Mhm.
How about Sam Pillsbury's wines? They're my favorite.
I've tried Pillsbury wines.
Yeah.
They're exceptional.
But you're right. It's the
Yeah.
terroir here really doesn't necessarily isn't good for a Cab Franc or a Cab
Or
Sauv
champagne,
or-
you're not going to make,
right.
or sparkling wine.
But
Yeah, you're
Tempranillo,
right.
Albarino, some of
Sure.
those hot weather grapes, it's
They're
gonna be
gonna work.
amazing here,
Mhm.
and they are. I think what is Grenache.
Yeah.
I've had some of the better Grenaches here.
They do a great job.
The
Easy
the
drinking, you
Grenache
don't need
loves the
age.
heat. That's
So Richard Betts, what Sam Pillsbury makes that red wine, is it Red Diva or Wild Child Red?
the Wild Child Red,
is
the
a
one that's
blend.
named after you.
Yeah.
Yes. What kind of grapes is that?
Well, it changes every year, but it's usually 2, 3, or 4 different grapes. The latest one that he has, the 20, is just Syrah and Grenache,
Mhm.
and it's
It's
incredible.
Which grow really well here.
It's
Right.
Most
so
of the
good.
Syrah
Our own
and
varietals
Grenache.
do really,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
you got to think about it from an
Mhm.
investment perspective. Outside of a famous musician that's done it, it's just really getting off the ground. Bordeaux's been around for 1,000 years,
Mhm.
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Burgundy this is new relatively.
Yes.
Oh,
And so
absolutely.
figuring out what varietals work, getting
Yeah,
the
we're
age of the
still-
vines, getting the right winemaker to be here
Mhm.
and spend the time. It's the same thing if you think about what they did in California when they started to go, whether it was off to Washington or in California to go more east versus on the west versus by the water. They're experimenting and they're doing a much better job of cultivating the dirt, figuring out what varietals, when to pick, when to do. And so things are getting better and better. And right now, Rhone varietals do extremely well in Arizona.
I love what you're saying because I have a best friend that is a naturopathic doctor, and she's also she's also a nutritionist, and she loves the Arizona wines and wines from France and Italy and New Zealand, Australia. She won't drink California wines because she thinks that the soil is so contaminated. I don't know if she's correct on that. I don't know if she's out there, but I love you. If you listen to the show, and I'll tell you, I'm not saying your name, but she thinks it's bad to drink California wines. And she's like, King, bad. Don't drink California wines. Only France, Italy, all these places I've said. What
Well,
do you think of
Europe's gone a version of organic for a while now.
Yeah.
that? Mhm.
And it's more, and it was harder to do in the United States, but they've been a version of organic for quite some time. And then they're going to sustainably organic, bio-organic, and all these other things about using copper for sprays and sulfur versus chemicals, and then doing less sulfur sprays. They're all natural. It's all considered
But she
organic.
says it's all in terroir. She said that it's all causing cancer. She's like, don't drink California wines.
Well,
That's
first
what
of
she tells
all,
me.
in California or anywhere,
Mhm.
in California, anywhere in the country, to be certified organic,
Mhm.
it takes 5 years for the soil to become healthy before you can be certified organic.
Mm.
So if you buy a California wine that's certified organic, it has been treated to make it healthy for 5 years. So
Interesting,
that
okay.
might be the exception.
Okay, so good to know.
Yeah, and there's a lot more that goes. So then there's bio-organic. There's different levels. The challenge, though,
Bio.
The European wines are pretty much, she says, organic. She says
A
New
version of
Zealand.
them.
Yeah.
a version of it. The other piece is when you have vineyards that are very close together, and the vineyard to the right is not. Well, they're
Yeah,
overspraying, and it's
yeah.
going to get onto your soil.
Yeah.
So it's a lot more complicated than what we're
Yeah.
describing.
That's cut, yes.
And so it's not as cut and dry as Richard was about
I
to
think
say.
the name of a wine, complicated.
Well, and
Well,
Europe
there's
and
a lot.
California have some of the tightest regulations around chemicals that there are.
Yeah.
So there's that as well. It's I'm sure the
Mm.
larger companies get away with a little bit more than the smaller guys, but most of the smaller guys that I've met are trying to grow, whether it's in Europe or here, are trying to grow in the most sustainable, healthy, non-chemical way possible.
They are.
Yeah.
The challenge is because Mother Nature wins 100% of the time, you can't always be organic and then produce something.
Mhm.
So if you look at weather, because the global warming, everything's getting warmer.
Mhm.
In general, that's going to be mildew. Well, mildew is natural, but it destroys your grapes. So the only way to combat that is you can do things pruning in the vineyard. You can try to have a fan that kind of cools everything off, or you can spray some things. But some sprays now, you spray and they blow off on the rain, so they're not actually getting into the leaves. So they're always trying to figure it out. But Mother Nature always wins. So even if you're organic, it doesn't mean you're bioorganic where you have that label, which means you don't do anything. Because the reality is you won't have wine.
Well, it's like I love. We talked about earlier Domaine Druid, and I know that because of all the wildfires or the whatever fires they had in California, maybe they weren't wild. Domaine Druid for 2020 didn't have any reds. They didn't produce any.
Yeah,
because they had the ash on their grapes,
Mm-hmm.
and I know some people that produced some wines with the ash, and some of them tasted great, and some of them did not.
So therefore, their 2019. Luckily, there was a big purchase of the reds for 2019 after the 2020. They didn't have any reds,
Right.
and then they doubled the price on the 2019.
2020, yeah.
So
but anyway.
the challenge is, the wine business is a business, right? It's not a charity, and so
I love that. It's a business, not a charity.
consumers are going to be the ones holding the bag when things that happen with Mother Nature, whether it's a fire or anything else, and then people sell the wines, and you're going to buy the wines, and because they taste good today, doesn't mean that's going to taste good a year from now when those chemicals settle. If you've ever opened up an older bottle of wine,
Oh
and
yeah,
there's
I
sediment,
told you.
so
I've
what
had
you're going to
bad
have
experience
is any of those, and I don't want to make a blanket statement, but a super majority of restaurants and store are going to carry 2020 California and other wines. And my advice would be, why buy it? There's
Okay.
other options.
But
Somewhere
that's
else.
important. I want our listeners, we have listeners from all over the world, and I want them to know, okay, you're the wine expert, and you're saying, there's a problem with 2020 wines, let's not do it. Let's not do it.
If you are loyal to a winery, buy a different vintage, buy a back vintage, ask them for library wines. Wait till they're 21 and buy double the amount so that they're taken care of.
The reality
There's lots of
is
things you can do.
that most people will buy the 2020 because that's what's on the shelf, and they don't know the difference, and they don't care.
And the
They just drink
restaurants and
wine. If
retail-
it tastes good, they're fine.
But I'm not the average
But,
white alone.
well, I'm not. We're talking
I want
about
the
you.
higher
I'm
echelon
talking about
of
the
the
wine
wine.
the business of wine is what I'm talking about. They've
We-
got to sell the 2020s as well.
Do we have
and
another
people
wine to
will buy
try, or
them.
are we done?
We could always open one.
Yeah, let's
What?
open one more. Don't ask Richard. We'll open one more.
What?
We have another 10 minutes. I hope.
13.
Yay! We've got 13 minutes. 13 minutes to drink. Let's go. Okay, Richard.
Yes.
So, where would you recommend somebody that's like trying to start a collection of wine for their wine cellar? Would you say go France, go Italy, go Australia, go New
I
Zealand,
would say.
and stay away from California, or would you say no, California's still okay?
I would say be as just spread it out. Just
Have a
be
mix.
as curious as possible and just try different things. One
I
of
like
my
that.
I've mentioned this before. One of
I
my
like
favorite
that.
sources of wine is
That's,
online. It's Somm Select.
Okay, start again. So what is Somm Select?
Somm Select is an online wine business run by master sommeliers. And they select wines.
Wait, let's start again because no one's got this going. So Somm Select
Somm
is.
Select is an online business
Mhm.
that's owned and run by master sommeliers. So you can buy wines on there on a daily basis. You get a daily offering, and you have an option of purchasing these wines. And some of them are older vintages. They're rare. Some of them are just. These guys have what we call access to so many wines all over the world, and they're bringing interesting things in that you wouldn't ordinarily find in
And what are
even
the
in a-
pricings of these wines?
Well, they can range anywhere from $20 to $500.
So you put in your price range, and then
Well, yeah, there's different ways you can interact with them, but basically,
Okay.
you
Somm
you
Select.
sign up, you put your email in, you get a daily offering. Those
Mm.
wines might cost. It might be a great wine from the Canary Islands in Spain
Mm.
that is small production, high quality. I mean, these guys get tons of wines, submitted to them to taste, and they pick the best ones.
What's the winery?
And they import certain wines that you can't get from anywhere else. So this is a great resource in my opinion.
Okay, what's the New Zealand winery I want to go visit?
Stony Ridge,
And who's the owner?
Steve White.
Okay.
His
Are you sure
wines-
that's the name?
If you
Yes,
put
I
some
am.
water in your glass,
Yeah.
we're going to switch to white.
Okay, thank you.
So,
Here we
you know,
go,
short of
Ryan.
that, just go to a good local wine shop like Atlas Wine
I love
here,
Atlas.
or
With Todd, we love Todd.
yeah, or the other
You know,
great.
Todd?
There's some great little wine shops here. The one down at Far Away Wines down on Indian School. Wine.
Where
I
people
think
come-
I took a class at Faraway
Yeah,
once.
these
and
guys,
had a
you know,
great
these
time.
people that own that, they're industry
Cameron.
veterans. Also, Hidden Track Bottle Shop has
Oh, I
two.
love Hidden Track.
They have great selections of interesting wines. These are not the wines you're going to go find in the supermarket. These wines are.
You know what?
Thank
People
you, sir.
go spend a
More
little bit
interesting.
more to help the local guy, because if you're helping the local business, you are saving the planet.
true.
Don't buy your wines
We
at
like that
Costco.
little place down the street here, Rewind.
We love it.
That was a great little place too.
Oh yeah, have
It
you been
was
there?
so
I have a
great.
couple
yes.
times. We actually went there Friday night after the gig,
Okay.
and I had a
It's
great time.
fantastic,
Good.
amazing.
I have a different perspective on how to build a cellar, though.
Please.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
if you're a serious
here we go.
collector, then
Here we go.
that's a whole other thing.
Oh, hold on, what's this called?
Look at it.
Never
You know
saw
it.
You should know it.
Mersant?
There's
Marceau, but it's Boyer.
Oh my gosh, it's Boyer!
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I love Boyer. I'm obsessed with Boyer, Boyer, Boyer.
We've-
Boyer,
I think you
Boyer,
ordered this before.
Boyer, Boyer, Boyer.
So, you know, from my perspective, if you're building a cellar,
Mhm.
you should focus on
Wow, that's wow.
the key areas and get the
Mhm.
best wines from those areas at the price points you're comfortable.
And what do you find the key areas to be?
Again, it depends what your preference is. I think the wine journey is valuable to understand where you're at and where you're going. The challenge with many somms that are focused on the academic component of being a somm rather than the practical. They're only drinking the wines that their restaurant or the somm tests, etc., have them
Mhm.
try, rather than the practical experience that we all may have in the real world. Now, eventually, many somms get there, but that's not always the case. So I'm more of the perspective of make sure you get some champagne and make sure it's the right champagne. Doesn't have to be the most expensive.
Oh, and what was your favorite? Tell us again.
Salos is my favorite champagne, and Cedric Bouchard are my two favorite champagnes.
And Solos is about what, $500 or $600 a bottle?
It's not inexpensive, and Cedric Bouchard is made in a Burgundian style, and Solos is an oxidative style. So if you take something like Krug Grand Cuvée that has some age on it, it would be more of that oxidative style. And then Cedric Bouchard is more of a Burgundian style, very finite mousse or bubbles, and they're both exceptional. But get some champagne. a
Where do we
percentage of
buy
your
that?
cellar.
Do we have to go to France to get it?
It's hard to get. It's one of the things that we do. Is
Do we have to
kinda
call
help
you or
people.
how do we get it?
No, but it's
What's your number?
yeah, it's difficult to do, and then make sure you have. You know, I know you prefer California Pinots. Get some California Pinots. Get some Burgundy. Get the Côte Nuit Pinots that we have. Get different villages. So you
Wait, who
get.
prefers the
Yes,
California
I,
Pinots?
it's really because it's the only Pinots I've really had.
Yeah.
I just like them, and
They're
so that's
great.
where I've stuck.
And they're great because you're going to get more approachable wines. These are going to be tend in California versus Burgundy, a little bit more acidity on the
Don't leave out
Burgundy.
Willamette Valley, Oregon.
That's
Well,
what I
I
was gonna say.
love whatever wine
Yeah.
somebody's opening for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But just make
Because
sure you
I
get
don't hang
the
with
mix.
anybody that doesn't open up a nice bottle.
Yeah, no, it's fair, and just make sure you get different Pinots from different locations, different Chardonnays. Even if you don't like white, you'll find that a Chassagne Montrachet or a Marceau are going to be different than the buttery wines that you don't like, where you go to a
Exactly.
store and buy butter or Cambria, or there's no judgment, or there's Rombauer Zinfandel that or Rombauer Chardonnay that people buy a lot of. No judgment, but
It's
just
about as buttery as it gets.
buy. They've changed their style, but yeah, and so get a different style. So
But I
then-
love that wine because my father-in-law, that was so special to me, loved that wine. And
wine's
every
about memories.
yeah, it's
Wine
it's about
There's
memories.
an emotional component
it
to
is.
wine.
It's just grape juice,
Yes.
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
At the end of the
Yeah,
day,
it
it's
is.
grape
Yeah,
juice
it is.
with alcohol.
You're not buying a car. I said it. Somebody was freaking out about a bottle of wine, and I was like, "Hey, you're not buying a car. Come on,
I
just
think
calm
that's
down."
good.
And if
I
you
said,
don't like
"Just
it,
calm down." Yeah.
spill it out, give it to somebody. Nothing's gonna happen. Just alcohol. Anyway, so do that and get some, Cabernets from Napa, Sonoma. Get Bordeaux. mix it up, and then in north west Italy, there's Piedmont, which is Barolo and Barbaresco, and then try. And then after you try again, and then eventually you'll figure out what you like and go
I
from
love
there.
that.
Before
It's a
going
process.
off.
It's a process. It's an evolution.
It
you know.
is. It is. Yes.
It's interesting. It's a
Exactly.
classic, story where someone will start with a California Chardonnay. They'll start with a big Napa Cabernet, and they'll really like it. And then,
My
then
gateway
but-
wine was White Zinfandel.
But then slow.
Mine was Rumbauer Zinfandel.
Listen,
That was Rumbauer
White
Zinfandel.
Zinfandel created more wine drinkers
It
in this
did.
country.
I'm
back
one
in
of
the-
them.
Yeah.
Wait,
Now, my-
who
But
did?
then
White Zinfandel.
Oh,
created a lot of wine
yeah.
drinkers because then they went to.
Mhm.
But anyway, you'll find that it's interesting that someone will start with a big Napa Cab, and then a few years later they'll be, their palate changes, and all of a sudden they'll discover something like Burgundy, which is so nuanced and different.
Yeah, my
and
palate has
once they
changed.
do it,
Sure.
that's it.
Well,
right?
that's why I
Am
love
I
eating
right?
at restaurants where I
Yeah.
can say to somebody like at
They
Atlas
didn't start
Bistro,
with Pinot. They started with a big wine, but their palate changed and developed so that they could
Yeah.
appreciate these other wines.
well, like I love eating at a restaurant where I can say to the restaurant owner or the som, surprise me.
Mhm.
This is what I'm eating.
Sure.
Surprise me.
Mhm.
And that's the best way to do it because then you really experience a wine that you've never had before.
For sure.
And that's why I love Laura Bruno at
Mhm.
Elements because
What's
I
your
can
name?
Laura Bruno. Laura Bruno, I love you. Anyway, so Laura Bruno will say to me, "Oh, what region do you want to have?" And I said, "I don't know. Maybe France or Italy, maybe New Zealand." And she'll say, "Okay, let's do France or Italy." And then she'll come back and she'll have this amazing wine for me.
Sure.
And what I love also is you can give her a price point, and she'll come back with something that's way. It won't be like at your price point. It'll be like lesser.
Mhm.
It'll be a lot less.
And I'm
than-
okay if they
you know what I'm
bring
saying?
lesser or more. I
Mhm.
like
Yeah.
that. I'm an options
Yes.
guy.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's okay if
Yes.
this is what I asked for and
Yes.
you've got two suggestions, more and less.
Mhm,
Tell me
mhm.
why I want to spend more, because if you can tell me why and it's compelling,
Yes.
I'll spend whatever you tell me to. But
Yes.
give me an option. Don't just give me something lower or add
Right.
it. Do your job. And I think Elements obviously is what you're talking
No,
about.
so usually my first bottle, I never drink alone. I've got a big entourage with me. And so usually my first bottle will be, and then she'll say, she'll come back with this is like right at where you said. And they're both amazing. So what I'm trying to say is you can have a price point of 100 or 80 or 125 or
It could
50.
be 20 or it could be 5,000. It doesn't matter. It's
And
the
they
same
still taste
for
good.
each person. You got to
Yeah.
figure it
Taste
out.
good.
And you have those Soms. You have Jason. You have Wissam. You have John over at Monarch. Jason's at Wrigley. You have all these people that are experts at what they do.
Maple
Anhelo,
and Ash, we love him. Richard, what's his name?
Daniel.
Daniel.
Weber. Daniel Weber. We love Daniel
Yep.
Weber.
So you have Jason,
Yeah.
Dan. You have all these people that can do
Mhm.
a tremendous job, and they're experts at what they do.
And then we have you.
And you
That's
have
right.
us.
We have you
You have
and
you. You
Anhelo.
have
Anhelo.
Ryan and Helen. But
There,
let
look
me
at them.
let me
Mhm.
reiterate and make a point that
Please do.
at Anhelo, the wine
Anhelo
program.
or Anhelo?
Anhelo, whatever.
All the above.
Do we say the H-A-N-H-E-L-O?
As long as you don't call it late for dinner.
Yeah.
The program that Ryan has created there
2 minutes.
is unique in that you can get wines by the glass that you never see. Number one, you get,
Well, that's
you get
that's
wines
a
by the
big deal.
glass
That is a big deal.
that you'll never
Okay.
see anywhere else by the glass. So you get to try things that you may
Yes.
never,
Never
have
have-
an opportunity to try in your
So my
life.
first experience with Ryan,
And the wine dinners that they have there,
he's right,
off the charts. I mean, really.
incredible.
Yeah.
So my
So,
first, I had
This is unique.
I had to take somebody to dinner.
Thank you.
I'm not saying his name. I had to do a thank you dinner, a birthday dinner, and I'm like, oh my god, what can you give this person that has everything?
Food
You know,
and wine.
Exactly.
Really
And so-
good one.
And I was hiking with Richard, and he's like, "We'll take him to dinner at Anhelo." Anhelo.
Whatever.
Anhelo. I can't say it.
Yep.
And call Ryan. And Ryan let us in. And
Los
that was the best
Pantelos.
birthday dinner ever.
Thank you. No,
He
I'm glad
was
we could do
so
it.
thankful, and
Yeah.
we opted for the more expensive version where you just came and surprised us.
Yeah. You're talking about
Wow.
the wine pairing per
Yes.
7
Yeah.
courses.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and they're like this wine, even if you're a Burgundy guy
Mhm.
or girl or pronoun.
Yes.
This is probably one of the best, and
Mhm.
it's an incredible price point. So you get lots
Yes.
of options, and they're only the best wines in every category.
I like
Well, this
their-
has been
yeah.
amazing. Thank you so much, Ryan.
Yeah.
Saving the planet.
One
Saving
show
it
at a
one
time.
wine at a
Richard,
time.
thank you so much. In the green room. Green, deep chetty music.
Yes, it's more fun.
And as my wife always tells me, drink the good wine first.
And Anhelo, how do we find Anhelo?
Downtown, going to Suns games across from Orpheum.
Okay, there we go.
Love it.
And how do people get a hold of you? They want to buy some wine.
Website, AnheloRestaurant.com.
Go
Okay,
there. All right, that's
Done.
it.
There you
And
go.
we're